Broadcasting from Baltimore, Maryland, this is 5x3 Radio, where strength is for everyone. I'm your host, Emily Sokolinski, owner of 5x3 Training, a strength and conditioning gym in Baltimore, along with my co-host, Rebecca Fishburne, founder of Cornerstone Strength Maryland. Each week, Rebecca and I will discuss the ins and outs of strength training, why there is a no one-size-fits-all approach, and why strength is so important in our daily lives. Thanks for spending some time with us today. Now, on with the show. Hi, everybody, and we are back from our break. It is now the end of July. Oh, my God. Yeah. Beginning of August is next week. I can't believe that. It's been a good month off. Nice month off. I have missed talking to you, Rebecca. I will say that.
Yeah.
You know, I've missed that. It's been, but I don't know how much has changed in a month, really.
Well, the temperature has been crazy.
It's been horrible. Thank goodness for AC. We actually do have AC at the gym. So I have had that.
You do?
We do. I keep the temperature to about 88, 90 degrees. And it's lovely in there.
Yeah, because one of the gyms that I'm working out of now, no AC.
Oh,
and I had a guy who was in for a 4-lift clinic. We had to postpone the second half of it.
Yeah.
You know, he was
it's brutal.
Yeah.
It's brutal. I mean, we're not 115 like in Oklahoma, and we're not in London.
You're used to also, right?
Yeah.
If that's your training conditions all the time, that's one thing. But if you just show up one day and you've got no AC and you're used to training in AC,
yes. And you have to understand, like in this type of weather, I mean, we're used to it. Like Baltimore humidity is just kind of like a thing. Everybody knows that, like that's going to be their thing. So, but some people will come in and they don't get it. They come up from other states. They're like, yes, this is humidity, which is great. My hands are nice and smooth. My skin is just absolutely lovely. You know, I don't have any, and my hands are like sandpaper, but the rest of us, you know, you're dying because you're drinking tons of fluid and it's just kind of leaving your body immediately. But it's been good. It's a nice time off. In the meanwhile, we did get an email, yay, from a listener about a topic. So our first topic for our start of season 3, because Diego said, is this season 2? This is the end of season 2 and beginning of season 3. I said, I guess we can make it season 3 since we had that time off.
Yeah.
So
I didn't know that we were,
I do seasons. I do seasons like 1, 2. So we're into season 3. So listener emailed us. She is working towards being a coach, and she actually is part of the Barbell Logic Coaching Academy, and has recently started training her daughter, who's 13 years old. And she had a couple questions about just that, like training teenagers. And her question was, my daughter started, and here are some things I'm noticing. I wanted your take on, on what my issues, what the issues I see are, and am I making more of it than I should. And she showed a video of her daughter lifting for the academy, and they had they had feedback for her. But the couple things that she noticed were that one of her motivations was being Instagram. One of the daughter's motivations was getting Instagram worthy glutes. Which she said was kind of bupkis, but she didn't want to tell her. She didn't want to tell her no. I'm all about the glutes, so I'm like, hey, if she wants a bigger butt and it's going to get stronger and she's going to do this for that, hey, that's why not? But the level of impatience. This is number 2. She noticed the level of impatience to see progress. She thinks it's higher than compared to adults, and Rebecca and I will discuss this. Not to mention the urge to rush through reps and sets. We'll discuss that too. And that mobility, she seemed, was a challenge because her daughter's tall but very slender.
Like hypermobile.
Hypermobile, as most young girls are who are tall and slender. She can squat low. She probably, her bar when she presses overhead probably goes right behind her ears and almost, to the back, to the wall behind her. So I imagine that's tricky. And so for her, she just doesn't quite know, is this something I should be worried about? Is this something that is just going to change as she grows? So she wanted us to talk about just training teenage girls. And I talked to Rebecca and I said, train teenage girls, that's great topic. I want to make that broader. Training individuals, training teenagers, because we both do. Rebecca has her daughter. She's worked with other teenagers. I've worked with my nephew, and I've also worked with, teenagers. What's the difference in training them versus training adults? Is there a difference? So we wanted to talk a little bit about just, in general training, and then also spend some time talking about training teens and maybe some things to think about, some, considerations to.
Yeah, well, because I think the point was you and I both kind of approach training anyone as an individual endeavor. So you're training that individual. They're going to have different motivations or different impediments or
needs. Yes, exactly.
Different challenges. And so everybody's like an individual.
Right.
However, there are, like your emailer was noting, some things that probably stand out a little bit more with teenagers. You and I both have worked with individuals of all ages who want to rush their reps or who want instant results or who, I guess the thing about the Instagram that kind of strikes me is funny is it's like, I think one of the things about strength training that is appealing to women of our age or, 30s, 40s, 50s is like this, 20s, 30s, 40s.
Right.
I'm on the other end of that. But like this idea that you're training your body to do something rather than look a certain way.
Right, exactly.
And there's an element of liberation to that. Like there's like, I'm doing this for me and I'm doing this for the positive improvements in the way I live my life and not for how somebody else perceives me. And so then when your kid comes at it from this perspective of I want to look a certain way on Instagram, it's almost like a smack in the face.
Right. and yet at the same time there's the reason they're saying that is because they're seeing women, who are strength training, who are squatting, who are deadlifting, who are hip thrusting, who are doing, glute bridges, who are doing tons of glute work because, hey, there are a lot of bikini competitors out there. Bikini competitions are still going on, right? And one of the big things are glutes. You've got Brett Contreras, even though he's got his own issues from way back when with his whole glute book, building stronger glutes. And I've talked about, stronger glutes means a stronger body. And I definitely myself went from the whole, look, I can pull my pants off without unzipping or unbuttoning my pants to, look, I can't. Now,
because you had no butt.
Yeah, I had no butt. And that we've gone from that of the flat butt look is not very attractive to I have a butt. You can thank Kim Kardashian and the Kardashians for having their, their asses all over the place. But, them aside, there is that, in a sense, it's kind of good. It's like, I want to look more voluptuous. I want to have a stronger butt as opposed to that pancake back butt that used to be kind of the thing. Because that's what I thought, like, oh, I'm skinny.
It's just
I can do this.
Aesthetic that's more popular at this point. But the upshot of that is one is probably more typical of a healthier, stronger fitness level
exactly
than the other. But there's a lot of that too, where it's just like that's your genetics. If you're born without any back or you've got extra, some of that is.
And in a sense, it's if she's wanting to look that way, if there's a young woman wanting to look that way, she's going to have to eat. She's going to have to, put some weight on. And this young girl is, pretty small for her, for her age and size. And many young girls are tiny like that and skinny. So is it a good thing that she wants to have that? She'll see that, well, I have to eat in order to, grow these nice glutes. Well, that eating is only going to be a healthy approach to eating, training. Where could that lead? Where could that go? And who knows if this obsession is going to last forever or if it's something that's kind of fleeting.
Could be a phase, whatever, like anything else, like it's, TikTok there for a second and then gone. But that kind of brings up 2 points that we were sort of discussing before that I think are not specific to training teenagers or teenage girls, but seem to be something that I notice more often with that age group. And one is like, I'm going to just say peer pressure in a very loose way. I mean, that might be something that is based on social media, Instagram, TikTok, like that kind of thing. It might be their peer group at school, and so like the influence of a peer group on what a teenager pursues, or how much training they're willing to do, or what they ultimately think they're going to look like by doing a particular type of training. That's one topic. And then the other one, like you're mentioning, is the nutrition to get there. And so, I think, you get different environments that teenagers are in, and sometimes it's a training positive environment, like gyms where they specifically have programs that are geared towards a middle school powerlifting crew, or middle school weightlifting. Same thing with high school. Some high schools actually have really nice weightlifting gyms and weightlifting classes. And some of the high schools, I think, even have, well, at least in Maryland, have like powerlifting teams or local gyms that will support a powerlifting team competitions that take place, in Carroll County. I think they've got one, like a high school aged powerlifting competition that is put on in the schools. I think it's like run by, I don't know. I'm getting outside. But the point is, I mean, you've got you all have to do is look at our friends out in Carroll County, Westminster Strength Conditioning. I mean, they have a huge population of teens training, we're talking middle school and high school, and lots of teenage girls lifting. And it's always, you see them training, you see the pictures, you see the videos, you have what they're posting about them. And there's this very positive outlook of they're doing sports. Yeah. So they know that this is important for their sports. And the way your team trains or lifts, or what your coach recommends or prescribes in terms of strength training, plays a huge part in it. Like both of my twins, they both were doing barbell stuff while they were in middle school. Then once they got to high school and Felicia was on the soccer team, barbell training is not what their soccer team coach is necessarily encouraging them to do. I think they do more circuit training or that kind of thing. So that's what she's more interested in doing. And then on the other hand, you've got Sadie, who's kept doing the barbell training. Yep. Feels a great sense of satisfaction doing that, has competed in a couple meets, but that for her has been highly individual. She doesn't have a big peer group involved in that with her. And if she had a different personality that was more sort of like friend dependent or social or that sort of thing, maybe it wouldn't have stuck for her. Maybe it wouldn't have been something that she persisted with, or that she even continued to find enjoyable. So like the social aspect of it, I think for teenagers is particularly crucial. Yeah, and I think if putting a video of yourself squatting or pressing on your Instagram account is important and helps you connect with other teens and your friends who say, wow, girl, you go, there is that sense of I'm doing something that's good. I'm getting attention from it. I'm getting respect for it. This is positive. This is positive. So I know that I have two young women that I've worked with recently. One, I don't know if I'll see her again. She lives in West Virginia. So she came in for just a clinic. Her dad brought her. He had come to one of our camps. She's 15, and he emailed me and said she wants to get stronger for climbing. She climbs. Yeah. And when she rolled in, she was, she's tall, skinny, and he said she's skin and bones, and she said I am, and she's wearing a baggy shirt and baggy pants, and I said to her, why are you here? I want to get stronger for climbing.
I said, what got you involved in rock climbing? She said, I broke my wrist mountain biking, so I thought I'd switch to it. And I was like, that was the best answer, you know? I mean, here's this young woman, and she knew exactly. She said, I want to be stronger for climbing.
Yeah.
Right? And her dad's doing this, and she got up at 5:30 in the morning to drive from West Virginia to come to learn how to lift. I mean, she's been doing it at home. Her dad's been having her do dumbbells and stuff like that. So, you know, we spent an hour and a half going over the 4 lifts, and she was wonderful. But there was a goal there. There's a desire, you know, to pursue something. And she was very coachable, you know, very trainable. You could see and I asked, do you have questions? No questions. It was like this young woman has an idea of like what she wants to do. You know, and that is very important when you're training, I think, anybody. We're talking about teens, but I know Rebecca and I want to talk about just training people in general, that, you know, trying to force someone to do something that they don't necessarily want to do or are not ready to do yet is a hard pill to swallow if you're the person who wants them to do it. But teenager, adult, young adult, whoever the individual is, there needs to be a reason, whether it's being, you know, showing off on Instagram, or wanting to get stronger for climbing, or wanting to find something that makes them feel better or feel good, and they're not a team sport kind of kid. This can be a huge, huge part of their life.
Well, and that's sort of, I mean, that kind of goes along with, I mean, the approach, I think, is best with teenagers or whatever, even younger kids, right? It should be fun. It should be something that's fun for them.
Yes.
And if they are asking to do it, if they're coming back and saying, can I do that again tomorrow? When can I lift again? That's a good sign. If it's something that you're pushing on them and they feel guilty or they feel bad if they don't do it, like they're letting you down. And it could even be like, you know, obviously, you know, since we're talking about friends and peer pressure, sometimes the peer pressure might be negative, right? Like we're talking about Instagram and in a positive light, like getting nice and on there. But if it's something that they feel like they have to keep up with the Joneses or the Kardashians or whatever it is.
Right.
And it should, you know, follow the kid's lead.
Yeah.
If it's something that they're interested in and it's fun for them, then keep it fun. And
I'd say regardless of what their intent for wanting to do it is, if you see that, like for the listener, that the Instagram thing is becoming somewhat of a concern, because that could be like she's doing things because she's getting applause and respect for something, but it's starting to be on the edge of, you know, maybe she's not eating, or maybe she's doing too much now. When you're not there with her, she's doing other things that are possibly harmful to who knows. It's just kind of keeping track of, like, you know, what the intention is. And that might eventually, I think that's a phase, it might fall off, especially if she gets interested in the actual training. Yeah. And that's really the key. If it starts off kind of lukewarm, or for one reason, it could easily transform itself into something like, I really enjoy this. I really feel different in my body. I'm seeing changes in my body. I'm feeling better about, you know, myself. I feel stronger. I can do things I couldn't do before. That is a positive, aspect to it, obviously, and you want to encourage that. But I think they kind of have to come to that on their own. I know that Jack, not a teenage girl, but a teenage boy. He was coming to my gym when he was 3. You know, he grew up there.
5x3.
And when he wanted to lift, he'd pick up a bar, he'd pick up a dowel, he'd pick up the light bar, do whatever. He'd load it up with some plates, he'd deadlift, and then he'd run around the gym and do something else. And I never ever once told him, even when he got to like age 10, 11, you know, you need to do this. It was just, if he wanted to do it, great. If he didn't want to, I didn't care. That wasn't the intent of why I'm there. Slowly, you could start to see the kind of, every time he would come, he would do a little bit more. He would want to learn more. He would want to try this. And then the last time he was here, he deadlifted and he benched. And that was in December. And then all of a sudden in May, I'm watching a video of him deadlifting 200 pounds in his friend's basement.
Nice.
And I'm like, whoa, what just happened? And now he has friends who have this interest and who have gyms at their house, or they go to Planet Fitness or whatever they do. Now there's like this camaraderie or this this bond now that they have with each other.
Lift buddies.
They all lift together, right? And according to him, though, none of them really train. He trains.
Well, so and that's the thing. Like,
he's becoming a snob now.
Well, yeah, right, but that's good. He should, he's old enough. He can train, right? So like there's a point at which you're just teaching your kids how to move and do things safely and have fun in the gym, right? And then whatever it is, stage 4, stage 5 on the Tanner scale of development. Okay, now you're old enough to actually train.
Exactly.
And you could do that, but again, follow the kids' lead. If it's something that they're interested in, that they want to do, then they can go ahead and train. But then on the other side of that, like the friends, that's the other thing you want to be a little bit wary of, right? Like the friend who isn't training, but sees somebody else who's older or who is training, or who just has like just a bigger, stronger build. And it's like, oh, well, that kid just, deadlifted 315, so I'm going to do the same thing too, right? Like that's sort of like trying to keep up with what the older kids in the gym are doing.
Yes.
When they're not necessarily ready for
he's
it.
Actually,
he's to post it.
He's doing
it on Insta or
TikTok. He's doing the opposite of that. He's actually looking at his friends going, he's doing like calisthenics. Like, I don't know what he's doing. He's got bands and dumbbells, and I'm like, he's like, he needs to actually start to lift. I don't know what he's doing, and so. So he doesn't. His friends aren't actually doing what he's doing. So now he's like the big band. I think he says, I have one friend who actually does this, but he doesn't really like do this consistently, and I don't know. So I'm not worried that he's
consistency.
He does. He says he's a little bit of a he's on Instagram. I don't even know what the picture is on his Instagram page now. It's some bodybuilder or I don't know who it is. And he's watching videos. He wants to know what he's going to eat. Does he need protein powder? How about creatine? And Diego's just like, just eat. Right. You don't need any of that crap. Just eat.
Overcomplicate it.
Just eat.
Get bigger just because you're
exactly. Just eat. He's insane. He came here this summer for June, and I had my intern, this young man who's going off to college in the fall, Mitchell. He coached Jack, and that was great because Mitchell's 18, Jack's gonna be 15. They talked. And Mitchell's giving him some advice on like what to eat, how to eat. Not to get too caught up with his friends and trying to do what they're doing and, max out all the time, So he's got somebody he can kind of talk to now who's interested in this as well and is encouraging him in a good, positive way. Mm-hmm. But he came to that on his own. He came to this completely on his own. I was not convinced that he was serious about this because a couple months ago he asked me about, I want to buy a rack. I'm like, dude, I don't need to buy a rack. Just go to the Y, fart around for a bit. Well, he got serious, and now he has a rack. He's got a bench. His dad built a platform for him. So he's actually got a little home gym in his basement. He got into the Ironworks class in high school. That starts second semester. So it's this kind of like beginner, weightlifting class with the football coach. He's so excited about that, but he's got the whole first semester just to train at home. And he's very good. He has not missed a session, even when he had a sunburn. He just got sunburned recently. He managed to deadlift and bench, or deadlift and press. Didn't bother him. Squatting kind of was bothersome. But he understands, I'm going to take some weight off the bar, aren't I, when I start back? Yes, you are. So there is definitely this thinking of like training. Like, I understand how this works now. I understand what I need to do. Again, he came to that on his own. There was no pressure from me, from anybody. His sister is not interested in it. She's going to be 12. If she becomes interested, great. Do I want her to do something? Absolutely. Do I want her to be active in some capacity? Sure. But she likes to box. She was playing badminton. She liked that. So who knows what she's going to decide to do? That's a whole other, you can't push somebody into something, even though I know this probably would be good for her. Maybe down the road as she gets older, she decides she wants to try something like this or something to this capacity. Maybe it's not quite the barbell work, but getting back to to training this young woman, and the other concerns that the mom had, like the flexibility, the mobility, the rushing through sets, all that. What do you want to, let's talk about that, because I feel like that really is kind of just in general training people.
Yeah. Like I was mentioning to you before, like one of my older clients, 78 years old, like always I have to remind her, slow down. They're all separate reps. Like it's just, a different type of training than she's done in the past. A lot of people feel like, if you're used to doing circuit training or group fitness or whatever, there's no resting, there's no sitting around, right? Like, and there's plenty of memes and jokes about power lifters just sitting there staring at their phones, right? So like, you don't want to be that person, but that's necessary, right? That's necessary if you're going to build strength to spend that time. And we have this idea that, you just have to power through what you're doing sitting around.
But I think you're right. I think it comes from a lot of people, most people who don't have this, who don't have any habits from, like, they haven't done any kind of training, not even a group class. They come into it and you tell them they have to rest and you explain kind of why, and they go, okay. And, you watch them kind of doing just what you told them to do. They will rest. They will take their time. Sometimes they rest too much and you have to say to them, you don't need to rest between your warm-ups.
Right.
I don't. They really take it to heart.
5 minutes. I was waiting 5 minutes between the empty bar and the first warm-up set.
Then you have people who come from that group training background, and they're the ones who have to say, this is not that. This is not group training. This is not, or even CrossFit. This is not that. This is not go as fast as you can, as quick as you can. And this is, you need to stop. You need to slow down. And let me explain why. So those people are the ones you have to kind of watch out for. I noticed that's really who I had to teach to slow down, are the people who come from that mentality of just constantly going.
Right.
But that's something you just need to teach across the board to people, that this is different from what you've been doing before, and explain why. And when they understand
talk about it as though it is a different sport.
Yes.
It's a different activity. It looks the same. It's the same equipment. Often it's the same movements, but it's a different type of training. And I guess, it's not even just the rest between sets. The emailer was talking about, I think, rushing reps.
Yes.
Moving from, one rep to the other without taking time to ensure that, you're tight or you're in the right position again. Your deadlift, the bar didn't roll forward and you're now starting with it up by your toes instead of, any of that sort of thing.
And that's definitely not so much like circuit training, but I think of like CrossFit. I think of any activity where they're telling you as fast as you can, as hard as you can, because you've got times on the clock type of thing. And it feels light, so it's easy to just kind of like, keep moving my body fast, because that's what I see on TV too, or that's what I see on Instagram. That's what I see on Facebook.
But see, then you get into this habit too, where it's like, if that's the way you've been training to start out with, then when it does start to feel heavy, you're still not going to get tight because you're going to rush through them because you want them over with.
Exactly. How many times have I heard that?
Yeah, I was just trying to be finished.
Yeah, I just want to get through finish. I was like, you're not going to finish that much faster. In fact, you could actually just lose the rep. It's going to feel like crap.
You feel how much worse that felt worse. It felt heavier.
So that's I read that, and then when I read that, I was like, that is anybody that I'm coaching for the first time. That is so not just a teenager, and that also is just not just in general. I think, I don't remember Jack doing that.
If it's the parent coaching the kid, right? And it is a type of training that is so different from what the kid has ever experienced or heard about. Like, it probably depends on the kid's personality, the degree to which they're willing to blow off the coaching advice to slow down, because what does mom know? Whatever, that kind of thing. That's not what everybody else is doing. It's always different when you're coaching somebody that you're related to, whether you're the parent or the spouse or whatever. It's just always, there are additional challenges because there's layers of habit communication that don't exist when you're talking to a brand new client. So
yeah. She mentioned, so we talked about the rushing, not the resting, the amount of progress made early on. I don't know how many people I have. I haven't noticed that with my
impatience for results.
Impatience for results. Impatience for results.
Now.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't, and I don't think that's so much a teenager thing as just maybe an individual. And so maybe with her, she is like, how come I'm not seeing things right now? Because I'm seeing this on Instagram, and these girls seem to be, to have it like immediately. Well, what you're seeing is not reality. Mm-hmm. God knows how long that, they. I
mean, yeah, and there's adults that like don't recognize that that's reality. But I mean, I guess kids do have a different frame of reference. And the frontal lobes aren't fully developed, and their sense of time, and the amount of dedication or time or commitment that it takes to achieve a goal might not. I
think Jack had that feeling of like when things started getting heavy, like when the bench started getting heavy, he's like, oh, why is it heavy? Like, why can't I do 5? Why is it heavy? I said, because you're 130 pounds and you're 6 feet tall. What I mean? Because you're skinny and and you're just learning and you just started, and that's how it's gonna be. I mean, you're not an adult man, who I can add 5 pounds to the bar, with your bench for a while. I mean, even then I have to add 2.5 pounds. I'm going to have to probably add 2.5 pounds a little sooner for you. You may have to do sets of 3 until your body starts to kind of catch up to what it's doing, right? He is like the perfect example of the GOMAD, right? And I told him that. I'm like, you need to be drinking milk at every single meal. Like, you need to just eat. That's what's going to put weight on you. And he can. He's a 15-year-old, almost 15-year-old boy. Mm-hmm. Right? How male you are, how young you are, right? If they say that's something, you're going to make more progress, right? You're going to make faster progress. But even he was like, what's going on? Why is it? I'm like, this is what it is.
But it's also, it's just hard to eat that much as an adult.
Yeah.
Right? Some people don't want to. I mean, that's really like Sadie is a picky eater. And there's she's never going to eat enough to lift let's not say never. It's going to take an extreme amount of discomfort at the dinner table for her.
And she's okay with that.
The trade-off isn't worth it.
It's not.
She's happy with what she's doing in the gym.
Yes.
Could she be lifting more if she ate more? I'm sure. Is that what she wants to do? I don't think so. Am I going to push that? Absolutely not.
No, and this is right. Right. And this is a teenage boy, and there are plenty of adults, or plenty of men, young men, who don't want to eat themselves into another weight, another weight class in order to lift that much weight, and that's fine, but for those who do want to lift more, who want to see more progress, they may very well have to eat more. You're talking the younger ones, usually, like, Jack. If he could get to 185, he's going to look great. He's going to look big. He's going to look good. He's going to be strong, right? He could hold that weight. He's going to be 6 feet tall. He's already 5'11", and he's 15. He's going to be about probably 6 feet. He could be 185 pounds. He could be 200 pounds. For him, right? But there are plenty of people plenty of even grown adults who they don't necessarily, that's not their goal. They want to be stronger, and they're willing to work within this parameter, right? Especially if they're older. If they're older, it's just what it is. But even if they're 30, sure, they could put on some weight, but how much of that's going to maybe help them? For some, it might help them. For others, it's not. I do have a guy who's 30 who's put on quite a bit of weight, good weight, since he's been with us. It's been about a year. And for him, his lifts went up. As he put that weight on, as he continued lifting, his lifts have gone up. Now, could they be heavier? Sure. He's one of those guys who's just going to put weight on the bar kind of slower. But the progress he has made is outstanding. And you can clearly see the weight gain has contributed to the added weight on the bar, right? Plenty of people, though, my husband's one of those, extra weight did not mean heavier weight on the bar, right? Yeah, so he's where he sits right now. He's quite content. He's quite content to be where he is, and the progress, and where he, and what he's done with himself, and what the progress he's made. So even that for a young teenager, especially maybe a girl, even a boy.
Yeah, and I think too, like when you're a teenager, your body in general is going through a lot of changes
Absolutely.
kind of rapidly. And so sometimes that can be unsettling to a kid. And that's to a degree may or may not contribute to like the other issue that your emailer was talking about with the mobility and understanding where their body is in space. But I mean, that might just also be like, they're going through all these changes anyway. They maybe don't want to eat in such a way that's gonna, and I guess I'm thinking of this maybe more from a girl's perspective. Like I think for teenage boys, there's more societal pressure to be bigger or more muscled or that sort of thing. There isn't that sort of pressure on teenage girls.
Sure, exactly.
Maybe there's an opposite pressure, and so maybe there's like a thought process there about I'm not. I mean, I think in my kid's case, it's just pickiness.
Yeah.
But like for some kids not wanting, or adults too, I had a big conversation with my cousin about this, and she's 40, like not wanting to lift, not wanting to eat a certain way, concern about being bulky or looking overly muscled according to whatever standard it is that she feels like people, society is using.
Yeah. And with this young girl, she's a couple of people in the academy who mentioned, she's underweight for her height, and she's 13 years old, so she's still growing. But she's going to hit the wall. She's going to hit a plateau sooner. She's going to hit the wall faster. She's not going to make as much progress unless she starts to, gain weight. Well, maybe she doesn't want to. Maybe she's
also, she's still growing. Maybe she's eating an amount that she's comfortable, that doesn't feel like her stomach is going to explode because she's eating too much.
Yeah.
But that's just barely enough to allow her to keep up with her growth rate.
So I wouldn't worry. I was training her, I wouldn't worry about that. Worry about that. What I would worry about was, is she interested? Is she still motivated? When I'm coaching her, does she seem to be, listening to me and trying to do what I'm telling her to do? And I'm going to monitor the program. I'm going to make sure that I'm not throwing 5 pounds on the bar, knowing that she can't do that the next time. I'm going to be careful. I'm going to be more mindful of how I program and how we add weight, and not worry about, well, if you just ate another. No, it's going to be, encourage the eating and the healthy living, but not use that as if you just did this, your deadlift will go up another 20 pounds.
Right.
Who cares? She may stop next week.
What you're talking about, monitoring the program, not throwing on 5 pounds if you think that she's, not bludgeoning her with this, you should be doing blah, 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 right? You want the program and the experience to be one that is going to help build confidence.
That's right.
Build a sense of ability and capability. And I think that, especially for teenage girls, is like the bigger takeaway. So that's, just like you're describing, focus on the program and setting up the program so that the teenage girl feels successful, feels confident, feels like they can take on the world, right? And the eating will come or it won't come.
Exactly.
But you're building confidence.
Exactly. And that's and I'm nodding my head. No one can see this, of course, everybody except Rebecca. But you're saying exactly, and I'm getting chills thinking about, you're saying exactly what we do just in general with women. When I'm training women, I train my women the same way I train my men. So do you. The program is no different, but how I approach it and how I think about, how much weight am I going to add? How many sets am I going to do? That is so that they continue to feel successful. I want people to walk away. Sometimes there's a day where they go, that was just a crappy day in the gym. And I go, yeah, that was. It's okay. We had those moments. We had those days. But it wasn't anything to do with the program. It was just the day. It was just what it is. And they didn't understand that. But this whole throw 5 pounds on the goddamn bar no matter what. No. No, and not for a teenage girl, not for a woman, not for an older woman, a younger woman, sometimes not even for a young guy. I mean, we can't eliminate the guys who sometimes feel like that's just really heavy and I'm not used to that, right? You want people to feel successful. You want them to feel like they are making progress. And that is your job as the coach to help them so that they leave every session feeling like they want to come back for that next session. That means something to them, right? They felt good. They finished. Next session, they're going to add, my coach is going to do this for me, and I'm going to lift it, and then he or she's going to monitor it so that the next time and I progress forward. I have a woman right now who's going to start working with me who's having her knee replaced. She's having 2 knees replaced. She's 50. She's in her 50s, and she wants to do some work. And she did some work about a year ago, and then it kind of got heavy, so she stopped. She's been encouraged to try it again. And she's ready. She's ready to do it. I'm going to progress her super slowly. I'm going to make her feel great after every session. There's no reason this woman needs to squat 225 pounds.
Right.
She's a 55-year-old woman who just wants to go into her knee surgery, feeling strong, so that when she comes out of it, she can recover better. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, and what you're describing there also, it's like that gets into this notion that I proposed this one time about a pre-NLP, right? Like some people are just not ready. They haven't had experience in the gym. They haven't worked with barbells before. They're not sure if that's for them.
Right.
They're like barbell curious, but they're not ready
to
commit, right?
Exactly.
So don't force that on them. There's plenty of ways that you can ease a person into an NLP, whether they make as much progress as possible, as quickly as possible, is not their goal or something that motivates them, but just to be stronger and more capable in everyday life. And if you start them out doing 1 barbell lift and a bunch of circuit stuff, and then it turns into 2 barbell lifts because they're interested in it and they want to try something else, right? That's always going to be better than somebody who doesn't do anything at all, or somebody who's like, no, I can only do cardio, or that's totally outside my bailiwick. I can't do that. I never will be able to, right? Like to have somebody that you allow to experiment with barbells, properly lifting them and gaining a little bit of confidence, even if they don't ever, even if they never do an NLP or they never do the program or whatever. Always, a little bit of something strength training related is better than not at all.
Yeah, if someone shows an interest in this type of exercise and this type of training, then if they show real genuine interest, then be there 100%. And if you feel that if they're asking questions or they're concerned about something, you go with it. Answer their questions, try to ease them, try to make them feel at ease. Don't force your beliefs on them. Right? Don't force what you think they should do. Even if it is good for them, allow them to try to kind of come to that conclusion on their own. And the best way to do that is to really be, I think, conservative and let them be honest with you about how they're feeling or what they're, and you be honest too about, well, this type of work can be very, exhilarating, and it's very confidence building, and it will help you build stronger bones. I always use the stronger bones, stronger muscles, stronger tendons kind of thing, as opposed to what your body's going to look like. It's how you're going to age. It's what you're going to do as we get older, and how much this will help us. And of course,
it's more like how you experience your body in the way that it functions, as opposed to how other people experience your body and how it looks.
And teens especially are, like you said, they're still growing. They're trying to figure out their bodies. So if they're coming to you, boy or girl, and they're wanting to do this, teach them, coach them, but don't push them to a point where they feel like this is something that is getting too much, and I'm starting to feel this way. And then also, if they do have those concerns, address them. Don't brush them off. Don't think that they're no, you're just being a wuss. No, address the concerns. I would address their concerns if they're an adult.
Yeah.
You have to, I can always see.
Address the concerns. That's like a great way to lose.
Exactly. I can always see the deer in headlights look. I see that look, and I know exactly I need to change something right away. I need to change that. I need to start going to triples. I need to start doing a top set of 5, even if they're not done with their novice progression. I'm going to start to, I'm going to change their program, because the last thing I want them to do is freeze and decide this is not for me. They need to realize how far they've come and the strength that they've built. And yes, it can be very scary to do something that you feel like you can't do. It's learning how to trust your body. It's learning how to trust, what your body can do. Some people give it up really, really, really easily. Like, I trust my body completely. I'm cool with this. Others, they have to kind of, walk that line a little slower. Teens are the same way. I mean, Jack, a couple weeks into his, training, he was futzing around with dumbbells at home. He's staying with my parents. My dad had some dumbbells. He's doing flies. He's doing curls. He's doing this and that. Well, 2 days later, he went to deadlift and something kind of pulled in his upper back, a little spasm. He freaked out. Me, I didn't. I said, "You okay?" My back. I said, "Your back is fine." It was his upper back. It wasn't his lower back. I said, "Your back is fine." He was like about to and he's like a Mr. Little drama king when he wants to be. He's always been that way. I told him, like, go home, put some heat on it. I'm telling all these things that I know. It's just like, whatever. He needs to hear something, because if I just say to him, "You'll be fine," that's not enough.
Right.
Checked with him. It was better the next day. It was better the next day. He was afraid to tell my father, because my dad would have been like, "I told you," But my father actually said, "Well, now you know. Sometimes this is going to happen." I was like, "Thank you, Dad." I said to him, though, all that extra stuff you're doing, I said, don't do that stuff. Don't do all this extra stuff, because it could interfere. So he learned to actually take a rest day, focus on the program. Don't throw in anything extra right now. He doesn't need it. It's like taking the creatine, all that kind of crap,
Mm-hmm.
And after about a week, he was fine. And I said, he said to me, "I'm so much better, Emmy, feels so much better." I said, I know. It just takes some time. But he could have been at a point where, "I don't want to do this. I hurt myself." And that's how adults react the same way, right? They're not used to that. You have to then tell them, "Relax. It's okay. Don't worry. I acknowledge that it's there. Yeah. I acknowledge it's there. But here's what we can do. We're going to drop some weight. We're going to test it out."
We're getting on a whole other topic. Though,
I know.
Because,
I know.
The person, the lifter who goes from their first tweak to, "Oh my God, I'm not going to lift anymore." There's so many myths about barbells that feed into that
and
process. That is a whole other podcast.
Whole other podcast. But I think because it was a 15-year-old kid.
Yeah, it's tougher.
It's tough
when it's a kid and they haven't experienced. You work with some older clients and they're like, "Oh yeah, well, my knees are stiff, but that's just age," right? There's this sort of expectation as we age that you're gonna notice and feel your body. Whereas when you're a kid, everything feels fine and springy and whatever.
But there's also, it's interesting.
You have a little twinge. It's like, ah.
I think it was interesting because because he was deadlifting, and because people always say, assume that that weightlifting is bad for you, even though all the other shit that we do is bad for us, and we hurt ourselves constantly. But it's a sport. You're going to hurt yourself in soccer. You're going to hurt yourself playing football. You're going to hurt yourself playing kickball. You may fall off your bike. Those are okay. Yeah. But I do something in the gym, and right away it's, he fell off his bike last year and broke his collarbone.
I hurt my back last week watching Better Call Saul.
Did you lean down and get your blanket?
I just got sucked into way too many episodes, right? Because we're catching up. I haven't,
right.
We're on season 1. Sat there and watched multiple in a row. Slumped up on the sofa. The next day, I'm like, "Oh my God, my back! It's killing me!" Right? And it's like, that's not lifting. That's being a slug, a couch potato.
But last year he fell. He broke his collarbone. Broke his freaking collarbone. Had to be in a sling.
Doing what, mountain biking or something?
Biking on the street, doing tricks, doing some trick on the street. Broke his collarbone.
But it's the deadlift that's dangerous, yeah.
So, but for that though, I broke my collarbone. It's like, you fell off your bike. Oh, that's going to happen. But picking up the bar and having a little thing coming from somewhere else that you were doing something stupid, and it's like, I can't do this. I'm afraid of this. You got back on your freaking bike. No one, everybody gets up. They get back on the soccer field. They tear their ACL again, but there's something. So even like the 15-year-old is like, there's this feeling of like, that's something that shouldn't hurt me. No, we can hurt ourselves doing anything, and usually it's something we did yesterday, and now is interfering with us with what we're doing today. So anyway, but you're right. That's a whole other subject.
You just covered it anyway.
I covered it anyway. I think
I think the other point that your emailer had made was that as a 13-year-old girl, her daughter was hypermobile, and that was something that was possibly different with teenagers. I think, a lot of coaches would tell you that that's somewhat typical of women, of female trainees, especially slighter or leaner female trainees. But it just, to me, kind of goes along with maybe there's something about that is teenage specific, in that their bodies are changing quickly and they have a hard time mentally keeping up with understanding where their body is in space. You also get that, like you were mentioning before, at the other end of the age spectrum, where as people age, they sort of lose touch with their body and may have a tougher time figuring out proprioception and, did I hit depth on my squat, or was I tight on this rep, or that kind of thing. But then there's also just people who do not have that ability at any age.
So, and I think
go through the same steps that you would with anybody, about just helping them, however it is, to build more body awareness. Maybe you're using more tactical cues with them. Maybe you're having more conversations with them about how to Valsalva and get tight and be rigid, and more of those. I always like those stick figures in the book, and like having people visualize themselves as just stick figure lines, like the segments, your solid segment from the top of your head to the bottom of your tailbone. Don't move that.
And a good, you're talking about tactile cue. A good tactile cue would be, if I had someone like this, I would throw a box underneath of them. I would have them touch that. I would have this, so that they can't slam onto it, like they're going down really fast into the, they find what depth is. They have to just learn what depth is. People always ask me, well, how do I do? I'm like, practice. I had to practice. I had to learn what depth was. I would always go too low. I can now, not so much anymore, but I would always go too low. And she mentioned in the email, I forgot, she also mentioned about dancers, and I coach a lot of dancers. And sure, my dancers, they can go too low. They learn how to not go so low. And my dancers definitely will stall on progress. If it's very easy I make changes very, very slowly. And I start going up, 2.5 pounds very quickly. And you try not to push the weight too much, because there's a lot of shifting that starts to happen, because they're weak, and they're not going to gain the weight that maybe you want them to gain. So you have to work accordingly. You have to work with them. You don't work against them. It's the same thing with a young girl who's growing, who may never, may always be slender and underweight for perhaps her height, but she's perfectly healthy. She may have those, she may have to train to a certain point, and as she gets older and she continues, her body will just follow, and it will work itself out. I don't think there's any reason to push or make the individual feel bad about not. You can also say, but you can also say, if they're concerned about their numbers, because she said something about numbers, sharing numbers at school. So I guess with her friends, why are my numbers so low? You could also, you are at a certain weight, and if you want to get your numbers up a little bit, we could start to talk about eating more protein, or you could try to spin it in a positive way. I do that with my adults. If they start to say something, I'll say, well, if we put a little bit more meat on you, the bar won't roll on your back as much. But I acknowledge that. I acknowledge that they're slender. But I also acknowledge that a little bit more weight is just going to, it's going to make them lift more and feel good and be healthy. But I don't push it. I don't. Yeah,
I think what you're talking about too is like you're giving them the information, the facts, like, a little bit more weight on your body, eating in this particular way.
Right.
would likely lead to an increase in the weight on the bar.
But
you're also able to get stronger with much slower progress
Mm-hmm.
than what you're doing now. It's your choice, right?
Exactly.
And leave it up to the kid. You know,
Exactly.
maybe they get to a point where it's like comparing numbers, you know, absolute weight on the bar with their friends at school is their big motivating factor, versus, you know, how much they're willing to change their eating habits, you know. But
if that's an issue.
Choices. It's just at any age, really.
I think you know, not worrying too much about why they're doing it, but encouraging it if it's having a positive effect, and then monitoring if you feel like it's starting to have a negative effect, that it's becoming obsessed with like certain numbers, or the girls aren't, you know, everyone's doing this and I want to do this. Then you have to just kind of be mindful of that. You know, what actually is the motivating factor with this? Is it a positive one or is it a negative one? And how do I help and, you know, keep coaching them if they want to be, but also making sure that it's something that they want to do and not something that someone's pushing them to do, or they're feeling bad about numbers they don't have versus who knows.
Yeah.
Who knows?
So, I mean, I think we covered the 4 points that the emailer had mentioned. And I think, you know, stuff that you or I had mentioned ahead of time, just in terms of peer pressure, having a group of, you know, lift buddies or people, you know, like if it's a shared experience for a teenager, that sometimes that's important.
Yeah.
Eating is sometimes difficult for teenagers, also difficult for adults.
Absolutely.
But that, you know, comes up for teenagers a lot. Body changes, proprioception, understanding where the kid is in space, because their body is going through a whole bunch of changes during that time frame. And then just keeping the experience positive and confidence building. I mean, was there anything, I don't know if there's anything else
that was it. I think it was good. Sort of
the things that we had thought of that are really, in actuality, no different than issues that come up when you're training an individual of any age, but seem to maybe be more prevalent when or at least more commonplace among teenagers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the first thing I thought about. I thought, yes, I've trained teenage girls, so have you. But I've trained teenagers and I've trained adults who feel the same way and do the same thing and act the same way. And it's just, as you said, I think the biggest thing is keeping it positive, making it a positive experience, and letting them come to it on their own. And you know, if they want to continue or discontinue, and you know, people always stop and start back up again. Yeah. You know, everybody.
I mean, like when I was working with my nephew too, it was like I realized pretty quickly, because he's off at college, and his buddies at college, that his friends that he's living with, they all do more bodybuilding style training. Sure. And here I'm trying to have him like, okay, if you're getting ready to do this meet with Sadie, here's how you want to do your big 4 lifts, blah, blah, blah. And his friends are like giving him crap. Like, where's your legs day, man? Like, why, you know, all this sort of, you know, stuff. Why would you do squat and deadlift on this, you know, like just all of these things. And I just sort of was like, you know, listen, this is what I would suggest. But ultimately, you're just trying to do this meet with Sadie to have fun. So, and the experience of it. So whatever you end up lifting in the meet is great.
Exactly. Then you have my nephew, who is, you know, judgmental of his friends, and he's like, I don't know what they're doing, but they're not doing what I'm doing. I mean, I'm just like, he's just messing around with bands and this and that. And Henry says he trains, but I know he doesn't. And I'm like, oh my God. But, you know, he's going to walk, I mean, he'll walk into that hopefully he'll walk into Ironworks with maybe a 300-pound squat by the time he's done. I don't know. It all depends on
unless the coach tries to fix his
and we talked about that, and Diego's like,
that's what they tried to do with my kids. The bar is too low.
He said, just let them, you know, whatever they do, it'll be fine. I said to Jack, I said, you know, he's going to try and fix you. You know, he's going to try and tell you to do this. He goes, oh, totally. He says, I know it.
Yeah.
So, but we'll see. Well, I think that was good. Those are the points that I wanted to make, and that's pretty much the email that we covered. from her. So hopefully that gives you out there, those of you who are listening, those of you who are working with teenagers or wanting to coach teens, or you have a child who is interested, some food for thought about what to what to help them with, what to expect. I think the biggest thing is just encourage if it's there, and go with the flow. Let them come to it on their own, and make it positive.
With teenagers too, especially if it's your own teenager, depending on, just because of the weirdness sometimes coaching a relative, like there's so many video resources out there. And if you have some of those things that you've already sort of looked up and available, and you can say, well, look at what this coach says.
Yes.
I'm saying.
Yes.
That can also be helpful if you have a little arsenal of coaching videos.
Exactly. So, as always, if you've got a question, we would love to talk about it, because we're always in need of topics. I mean, we come up with our topics, but it's always nice when someone has a topic that you're like, oh, I haven't thought about that. I don't think we've ever talked about that. That's a good topic. We would love to discuss and be able to give you, our opinions, our thoughts as coaches, on a particular subject, and kind of see if that's what you were thinking, or if you have other questions after we've answered that question, because we probably have gone off on a tangent somewhere, as we always do. But you can always reach us at Emily@5by3.com or Rebecca at
cornerstonestrengthmaryland@gmail.com.
So have a great week, everybody. It is now, almost school time again.
Oh God, it's terrible. In Maryland, it's like they had an 8-week summer. The longest school year ever. Finished at the end of June.
Yep, everybody's getting ready.
Starts again in August.
For school again. Jack starts back August 15th. I think most schools.
August 15th is miserable.
Colorado gets out early too. They get out in May.
Yeah.
They have a longer summer.
That's at least better than ending in June 26th and starting in.
Yep. So we'll get back to our every other Wednesday podcast. This one is coming out August 1st, or not August 1st. August 1st is Monday. August 3rd. Yeah, so Wednesday is next Wednesday. So this will be our first podcast back for season 3. And then hopefully, if I can get in touch with Cassie and Catherine, we can have them on the show.
Oh, fun.
More female strength. So 2 coaches that we are friends with who, I just saw Cassie recently. She was up visiting her parents. So she came up to the gym. And I mentioned the podcast, and we were like, oh yeah, right, the podcast. And then of course, so we'll have to get in touch with her and them and see if we can hook up something to do with them. But thanks, everybody. Have a great week. And we'll be back in 2 weeks with you again, discussing who knows what. It'll be a surprise. All right. Thanks, Rebecca.
See ya. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Bye. Thanks for listening to 5by3 Radio with Emily and Rebecca. If you like our show and want to know more about 5by3 training, please visit us at www.5, that's F-I-V-E, the letter X, the number 3.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram. To learn more about Rebecca, please visit her website, cornerstonestrengthmaryland.com. Thanks for listening, and have a great week.